The eviction notice trembled in Diana Ripley's hands as she stood outside Mel's diner, her waitress apron already stained from the morning shift. 3 days until Christmas. 14 days until homelessness. Her son's letter to Santa burned in her pocket like a guilty secret. A list of modest wishes she couldn't afford, even if she worked triple shifts. Hey there, beautiful souls. I hope this story finds you wrapped up warm wherever you are in this world. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I love connecting with you all. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do it now, because trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in Diana's journey. The December wind bit through her thin jacket as she pushed through the diner's door for her double shift. 16 hours on her feet. Tips that barely covered gas. A 7-year-old boy at home who still believed in magic, even though Diana had stopped believing in anything except survival. "Table 9's getting impatient," Brenda, the other waitress, muttered as Diana clocked in. Diana grabbed her order pad, forcing her customer service smile into place. Table 9. The man had been coming in daily for a week now, always alone, always watching. Not in a creepy way, more like he was studying people, reading stories in their tired faces. Today, he was staring directly at her. "Coffee, black," he said before she could speak. His voice was warm molasses, his eyes sharp behind silver-rimmed glasses. 70, maybe older, with hands that looked like they'd built things, fixed things. "And I need to ask you something, Diana." Her name tag. He'd read her name tag. So why did her spine prickle with warning? "What can I get you besides coffee, sir?" "The truth." He slid a newspaper across the table. The classified section, her circled apartment listings visible. Her stomach dropped. She'd left that in her car. Hadn't she? I don't. How much do you need?" His question hung in the air like snowflakes refusing to fall. "To keep your son's Christmas? To keep your home?" Diana's throat closed. This was a setup. A scam. Or worse, pity from a stranger who'd been watching her break apart, one shift at a time. "I need you to leave," she whispered. He stood slowly, leaving a $50 bill under his coffee cup. Then he placed something else on the table, a blank piece of paper and a pen. "Make a list, Diana. Everything your boy wants. Everything you need. Leave it with Brenda when you're ready." His smile was sad, knowing. "Santa's got you this year." He walked out into the snow, and Diana stood frozen, holding a pen that suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. What kind of stranger offers miracles to broken mothers? And why did every instinct scream that accepting would change everything? Diana didn't write the list that night. Instead, she drove home to the cramped apartment she'd have for 12 more days, where her son Elliot sat cross-legged on their threadbare couch, building towers from empty cereal boxes. "Mama!" He launched himself at her legs, 7 years of pure joy wrapped in a too small Spider-Man shirt. His father had left that shirt 2 years ago, along with promises he'd never kept, and child support payments that never came. "Hey, baby." Diana lifted him, ignoring the ache in her feet, the weight of impossible decisions. "How was Mrs. Chen?" "She taught me Chinese checkers and gave me dumplings." Elliot's grin faded slightly. "She said we might have to say goodbye soon." "Are we moving, Mama?" The question punctured something in Diana's chest. She'd tried so hard to shield him from their reality. The overdue bills, the calls from the landlord, the nights she cried silently in the bathroom while he slept. "Maybe," she whispered, "but it'll be an adventure." Elliot nodded. Too accepting, too mature. He pulled a crumpled paper from his pocket, the letter to Santa she'd helped him mail last week. I know we can't do big Christmas this year. Mrs. Chen explained about money being tight, so I wrote a different list. Diana unfolded it with shaking hands. Dear Santa, just warm socks for Mama. Her feet hurt. Maybe food that isn't ramen. And if you have extra magic, a place where Mama smiles again. Love, Elliot. The paper blurred as tears came. This beautiful, selfless child deserved every toy, every joy, every childhood dream. And she was failing him. It's perfect, she managed. That night, after Elliot fell asleep clutching his stuffed bear, a thrift store find from better days, Diana sat at their kitchen table. The stranger's blank paper lay before her, next to Elliot's letter. Outside, Christmas lights twinkled in windows she couldn't afford to decorate. Make a list. The pen felt like surrender. Like admitting she couldn't do this alone. Like accepting that sometimes the only way forward was through the kindness of strangers who appeared from nowhere with offers that sounded too good, too pure, too impossible. But Elliot's socks had holes. Their fridge contained condiments and hope. And in 12 days, they'd be sleeping in her car. Diana began to write. Winter coats. Boys size 8, women's medium. Rent, $12,200, Christmas dinner ingredients. Elliot's list, science kit, books, art supplies. Her hand trembled over the next line. This was insane. He was probably a con artist, or worse. But something in his eyes had looked like truth, a reason to believe in miracles again. She folded the paper, sealed it in an envelope, and knew tomorrow at the diner would either change everything or confirm that hope was just another luxury she couldn't afford. What she didn't know was that the stranger, Thomas Scrooge, retired toymaker and collector of broken stories, had already made 3 calls that would shatter her carefully controlled world. Diana handed the envelope to Brenda during the morning rush, feeling like she'd just mailed her dignity to a stranger. The diner buzzed with holiday chaos, families ordering pancakes, truckers gulping coffee, everyone wrapped in the warmth of belonging somewhere. Table 9's guy? Brenda asked, eyebrow raised. Honey, he left this for you. She slid a business card across the counter. Thomas Scrooge, Toy Restoration and Christmas Miracles. Below, meet me at 428 Pinewood Lane. 2 p.m. Today, come alone. That's serial killer talk, Brenda said flatly. You're not going. But Diana pocketed the card, her heart hammering against her ribs. The address was in Evergreen Heights, the wealthy neighborhood where she'd cleaned houses during college, where Christmas meant something different than survival. At 1:45 p.m., Diana stood before a Victorian mansion that looked like it had been plucked from a Hallmark movie. Lights draped every surface. Wreaths hung on double doors. Through the windows, she glimpsed what looked like Santa's workshop exploded inside. Before she could knock, the door swung open. But it wasn't Thomas Scrooge standing there. It was a woman, 30-something, black like Diana, wearing designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that cost more than Diana's car payment. Her face was kind, intelligent, and somehow familiar in a way that made Diana's stomach twist. Diana Ripley? The woman extended her hand. I'm Violet Skywalker, Thomas's daughter. Well, adopted daughter. It's complicated. Her smile was nervous. Please, come in. There's something you need to see, before you decide if you trust us. Diana followed her inside, and her breath caught. The entire mansion was filled with toys. Not new, shiny toys, but restored vintage treasures. Rocking horses with fresh paint. dolls with mended faces, train sets rebuilt with love. And in the center of the living room stood Thomas, surrounded by 3 other people Diana didn't recognize. "Diana," Thomas smiled. "Meet my team. We call ourselves the December Project." A Latino man in his 40s stepped forward. "Julian Bourne, social worker. I verify the families." An elderly Asian woman bowed slightly. "Grace McLean, accountant. I manage the funds." A younger white guy with kind eyes waved. "Ethan Prospero, lawyer. I handle the legal stuff, making sure everything's legitimate and safe." Diana's head spun. "What is this?" Violet handed her a tablet. On the screen, bank statements, tax documents, a charity registration. Everything official. Everything real. 5 years ago, my biological son died, Thomas said quietly. Christmas morning. He was 9. After that, money meant nothing. This house meant nothing. So I started finding families who needed what I couldn't give him anymore. Magic. Diana's throat tightened. "Why me?" "Because Brenda's my niece," Thomas said. "She's been telling me about you for months. And yesterday, when I saw you holding that eviction notice, looking at your son's Santa list," his voice cracked, "you reminded me that some people still fight for Christmas when they have every reason to give up." Violet stepped closer. "We're not just giving you money, Diana. We're offering you something else." She pulled out a contract, and Diana's world tilted. "A job, manager of the December Project. Salary, $65,000. Benefits included. You'd help us find families, coordinate donations, rebuild hope." Violet's eyes shimmered. "Thomas is getting older. He needs someone who understands what it means to need miracles because you've lived without them." Diana stared at the paper, at the salary that would change Elliot's entire life, at the strangers offering her salvation. "This is real," she whispered. "As real as your strength," Thomas said. "As real as that list you wrote for your son." Diana looked around the room, at the toys waiting for children, at the people who'd chosen kindness as their career, at the possibility of a future that didn't involve eviction notices and empty Christmases. Her hands shook as she reached for the pen. But before she could sign, Violet's phone rang. Her face went white. "We have a problem," she said. "Someone just filed a lawsuit claiming Thomas's charity is a fraud. They're freezing all our accounts. Everything." She looked at Diana, devastated. "Including the money for your rent." The miracle shattered before Diana could even touch it. The room fell silent except for the ticking of an antique clock shaped like Santa's sleigh. Diana watched her future disintegrate in real time as Violet scrolled through her phone, her face growing paler with each swipe. "It's Gerald Cratchit," Ethan said, reading over Violet's shoulder. "Thomas, your former business partner. He's claiming you misappropriated company funds to start the December Project." Thomas sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of his 73 years. "Gerald, I should have known. He never forgave me for choosing philanthropy over profit." "Can he do this?" Diana heard herself ask. "Just freeze everything?" Julian nodded grimly. "With the right judge." "Enough money for lawyers?" "Absolutely. Even if it's baseless, it'll tie up the charity for months, maybe years." Diana felt the familiar weight of disappointment settle over her shoulders like an old coat. Of course the miracle was temporary. Of course hope came with an expiration date. "I should go." She stood, smoothing her diner uniform. "Thank you for trying." "Wait." Violet grabbed her arm. "What if we fight this? Together? With what? Diana gestured at the frozen accounts on the tablet. I can't even fight my own eviction. I'm a waitress who couldn't afford to buy her kid a science kit. What am I supposed to do against some rich businessman's legal team? You're also a woman who's been fighting impossible odds every single day and still showing up, Thomas said quietly. Gerald has money and lawyers, but we have something he doesn't understand. We have stories, real families, real need, and we have you. Diana laughed bitterly. What do I bring to this? Poverty, credibility? Truth, Grace spoke for the first time, her accent thick but her words precise. I've audited Thomas's books for 3 years. Everything is legitimate, every dollar documented. But courts don't care about spreadsheets. They care about impact, about faces and voices. She looked at Diana steadily. They care about a single mother who represents hundreds of families we've helped. You want me to what? Testify? Go public? Diana's heart then erased. I have a son. I have 12 days before I'm homeless. I can't afford to be anyone's poster child for charity. Ethan pulled out his laptop. What if we could solve both problems at once? I make some calls, get you into emergency housing assistance. Buy us time. Meanwhile, you help us gather testimonials from families Thomas has helped. We build a case that shows Gerald's lawsuit is revenge, not justice. And if we lose? Diana whispered. Then we all lose, Violet said. Thomas loses the charity that gave him purpose after losing his son. Families lose their Christmas miracles. And you, she paused, you lose the job offer. Because there won't be a December project to manage. Diana looked at Elliot's letter, still folded in her pocket. A place where Mama smiles again. How long do we have? Court hearing is December 23rd, Ethan said. 2 days before Christmas. Judge wants to resolve it before the holiday. That's 12 days, Diana calculated. Same deadline as my eviction. Thomas stood slowly, walked to a shelf, and pulled down a wooden toy soldier, hand-carved, beautiful, ancient. My grandfather made this in 1943, during the war when everything was rationed and hope was scarce. He told me, Thomas, the only thing that can't be rationed is the decision to fight for what matters. He placed it in Diana's hands. So I'm asking, will you fight with us? Diana closed her fingers around the toy soldier, feeling its weight, its history, its implicit promise that fighting was sometimes the only option left. She thought of Elliot's socks with holes, of the stranger who'd seen her breaking and offered a pen, of the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to stop merely surviving and start actually living. I need to make a call, she said finally. To my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Ask if she can watch Elliot for a few extra hours each day. Violet's face lit up. Does that mean? It means we have 12 days to save Christmas for everyone, Diana interrupted. So we'd better stop talking and start fighting. Where do we begin? Thomas smiled. A real smile, full of relief and rekindled hope. We begin with the truth, and lucky for us, you've been living it your whole life. What Diana didn't know was that across town, Gerald Cratchit was making his own calls, and his next move would force her to choose between protecting her son and protecting the miracle. If you're feeling this story, drop a comment below and tell me what you'd do in Diana's position. Would you fight or walk away? Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss how this unfolds. The next 6 days blurred into a whirlwind of documentation, testimonials, and sleepless nights. Diana drove across the city with Violet. meeting families Thomas had helped over the years. A cancer survivor whose medical bills got paid. Twin girls who received wheelchairs. A veteran who got job training and a fresh start. Each story carved deeper into Diana's understanding of what the December Project truly meant, and what Gerald Cratchit was trying to destroy. On day 7, Ethan called an emergency meeting at the mansion. His face was grim. Gerald's lawyers just filed an amended complaint. He projected documents onto the wall. They're not just claiming financial fraud anymore. They're claiming something else. Diana's stomach dropped as she read the words highlighted in yellow. Thomas Scrooge knowingly employed Diana Ripley, a person of interest in an active child neglect investigation, demonstrating reckless disregard for child safety and proper vetting procedures. The room spun. What? Violet grabbed her hand. Diana? What is this? I don't know. There's no investigation. Elliot is fine. He's happy. He's healthy. I would never… Diana's voice cracked. This is a lie. Julian was already on his phone, pacing. I'm calling Child Protective Services now. Something's wrong. Thomas stood abruptly. Gerald wouldn't fabricate something like this. It's too easily disproven. His eyes narrowed. Unless someone filed a false report. Who would do that? Grace asked. Diana's blood went cold. My ex, Elliot's father. The room fell silent. Derek disappeared 2 years ago, Diana said slowly, the pieces clicking together with horrifying clarity. He owes $30,000 in back child support. Last I heard, he was in Arizona with his new girlfriend. Her hands trembled. But what if Gerald found him? What if he paid Derek to file a false CPS report to discredit me, and by extension, discredit the December Project? Ethan's face darkened. That would be witness tampering. Fraud. But proving it, I can prove it, Diana interrupted. She pulled out her phone, scrolling frantically through old messages. Derek texted me 3 days ago. First time in 18 months. He said he wanted to discuss custody arrangements. I ignored it, because he's never cared about Elliot. But look, she showed them the message. The text came from a Nevada number, not Arizona. Violet leaned in. Nevada, where Gerald Cratchit has his corporate headquarters. Julian, what did CP and CPS say? Thomas asked. Julian hung up, his expression troubled. There is an open case, filed anonymously 6 days ago, claiming Diana leaves Elliot unsupervised, doesn't provide adequate food, and exhibits signs of substance abuse. He looked at Diana with sympathy. It's all lies, but the system has to investigate. They're scheduled to do a home visit tomorrow. Diana's world tilted. Tomorrow? But tomorrow I'm supposed to meet with the judge's clerk to submit our testimonials. Exactly, Ethan said quietly. Gerald timed this perfectly. You miss that meeting, we lose credibility. You attend the meeting, you look like a negligent mother who prioritizes strangers over her own child's welfare. He's forcing me to choose, Diana whispered, between saving the December Project and protecting Elliot. Violet's phone buzzed. She read the message and her face went sheet white. It gets worse. Gerald's team just leaked this to the media. There's a news van outside Thomas's house right now. They're calling it Christmas Charity Scandal. Founder employs alleged neglectful mother. Through the window, Diana saw the van, saw the reporter setting up, saw her life becoming a spectacle for the evening news. I have to go. She grabbed her coat. I have to get to Elliot before he sees this on TV, before his friends' parents see it, before… Diana, wait. Thomas caught her arm. His eyes were wet. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. Gerald's using you to hurt me. No. Diana pulled away. He's using you to hurt families like mine, to prove that people like me don't deserve miracles, that we're too broken, too messy, too poor to be worth saving. She headed for the door, then stopped, turned back. I'm going to that CPS visit tomorrow. I'm going to show them that my son is loved and cared for, even if we're poor, even if we struggle. Her voice strengthened. And then I'm going to that courthouse, and I'm going to tell the judge exactly what Gerald Cratchit did. Not just to me, but to every family he's trying to rob of hope. Violet stood. We'll come with you. No. Diana shook her head. You need to stay here and handle the media. Control the narrative. She looked at Thomas. Tell them the truth. That you hired a struggling single mother because you believe people who've lived through darkness know how to carry light. She walked out into the December cold, past the news van, past the reporter shouting questions she didn't answer. At home, Mrs. Chen met her at the door, Elliot sleeping peacefully inside. The TV people came, Mrs. Chen said sadly, asking questions about you, about Elliot. Diana's heart shattered, but she kept her voice steady. What did you tell them? Mrs. Chen smiled. I told them Diana Ripley is the best mother I've ever known, and if they want a story, they should ask about the woman who works 2 jobs and still reads to her son every night. Diana hugged her, tears flowing freely now. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat at Elliot's bedside watching him dream, preparing for the battle that would determine whether fighting for miracles was worth the cost of becoming the story everyone judged. The CPS caseworker arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. Sandra Wells, 40-something, exhausted eyes, a woman who'd clearly seen too many broken homes and heard too many excuses. Ms. Ripley, she didn't smile. I'll need to inspect the apartment and interview your son privately. Diana stood aside, watching Sandra catalog their poverty with clinical efficiency. The cramped space, the thrift store furniture, the refrigerator that hummed too loud because the motor was dying. Everything Diana had worked so hard to maintain suddenly looked like evidence of failure. Elliot sat on the couch, confused but cooperative, answering Sandra's questions with the earnest honesty of a 7-year-old who didn't understand he was being evaluated. Does your mom make you dinner every night? Yes, ma'am. Sometimes it's ramen, but she makes it special with eggs and vegetables. Are you ever home alone? No. Mrs. Chen watches me when Mama works. She teaches me Chinese checkers. Has your mother ever hit you or yelled at you? Elliot's face scrunched up. Mama doesn't hit. She hugs a lot, though. Sometimes too much, he giggled. Diana's heart cracked watching her baby defend their life to a stranger with a clipboard. After 30 minutes, Sandra closed her notebook. Ms. Ripley, can we speak privately? In the kitchen, if you could call the tiny alcove a kitchen, Sandra's professional mask slipped slightly. Your home is clean. Your son is healthy, well-adjusted, clearly loved. The accusations in this report, she paused. They don't match what I'm seeing. Relief flooded Diana. So you'll close the case? I'm recommending closure, yes. But Ms. Ripley, I need to be honest with you. Sandra glanced toward where Elliot was coloring. The person who filed this report provided very specific details. Your work schedule, your son's school, even mentioned the eviction notice. Her voice dropped. Someone close to your life gave them this information. Diana's blood ran cold. His father. I can't confirm that, But whoever it was, they wanted to hurt you. Sandra handed her a card. If you're in danger, if this is part of a larger pattern, there are resources. I'm not in danger. I'm just in the way of someone's revenge. Sandra nodded slowly, understanding more than she said. Good luck, Ms. Ripley. Your son is lucky to have you. After she left, Diana had 15 minutes to get Elliot to Mrs. Chen's and herself to the courthouse. She was changing clothes when her phone rang. Violet. Her voice was panicked. Diana, don't come to the courthouse. What? Why? Derek is here. Gerald brought him as a witness. He's claiming you abandoned Elliot, that you're mentally unstable, that he wants custody. Violet's breath hitched. Diana. He's wearing an expensive suit. Gerald clearly paid for lawyers. They're painting you as an unfit mother using charity work to cover her neglect. Diana sank onto her bed. I passed the CPS inspection. I can prove he's lying. It doesn't matter. The judge just saw the morning news. They ran a segment called Charity Begins at Home. Does Christmas Project hire help families or exploit them? They interviewed Derek. He cried on camera talking about his concern for his son. He abandoned us. Diana's voice broke. He left Elliot on his 5th birthday and never looked back. I know. We know. But Diana, if you come here, if you face him in court, Gerald's lawyers will twist everything. Your poverty, your struggle, the eviction. They'll make it look like you're choosing the December Project over Elliot's stability. Violet was crying now. And if Derek pushes for custody, even temporarily while this plays out, Diana couldn't breathe. The room tilted. He could take Elliot. Yes. Outside, car doors slammed. Diana looked out the window and saw them. 3 news vans now, reporters setting up cameras, neighbors gathering to watch the spectacle. Her phone buzzed with texts. Brenda. Honey, the diner's phone is ringing off the hook. Reporters asking about you. Boss says you're fired. I'm so sorry. Mrs. Chen. Diana, I love you, but my daughter says having Elliot here during this investigation could affect my standing as a foster parent. I can't risk it. I'm so sorry. Unknown number. Stop fighting. Drop the testimonial. Walk away from Thomas, or I'll make sure you never see your son again. Derek. Diana stared at the messages, at the life she'd been barely holding together now completely falling apart. No job, no childcare, no character witnesses, and a man who'd never cared about Elliot suddenly weaponizing the legal system to destroy her. She called Violet back. Tell Thomas I'm sorry. Tell him I can't come. I can't risk Elliot. Diana, please, tell the judge the truth without me. Maybe it'll be enough. She hung up and gathered Elliot, who was still happily coloring, oblivious to the destruction outside. Mama, why are all those people here? They're confused, baby, but it's going to be okay. She was lying. Nothing was okay. The eviction was in 5 days. She had no job. Derek was circling like a vulture. And the December Project, the miracle that was supposed to save Christmas, was crumbling because she'd dared to believe she deserved better. Diana locked the door, closed the blinds, and held her son while the world outside judged, speculated, and waited for her to break completely. In the courthouse across town, Thomas sat alone in the gallery, watching Gerald Cratchit's lawyers dismantle 5 years of charitable work with surgical precision. Without Diana's testimony, without her truth, the miracle didn't stand a chance. Diana spent that night on the floor beside Elliot's bed, watching him sleep. wondering how she'd protect him from a father who'd suddenly materialized from nowhere, with lawyers and lies. At 2 a.m., her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Diana, it's Grace McLean. Check your email. Now." Diana crept to the kitchen, opened her laptop. Grace had sent a single file, a PDF of bank records. Wire transfer, Gerald Cratchit to Derek Ripley. $50,000. Date 6 days ago. Memo line, consultation fees. Diana's hands shook. Proof. Actual proof that Gerald had paid Derek to file the false CPS report, to show up at court, to threaten custody. But beneath the bank records was something else. A video file. Diana clicked play. The footage was grainy, clearly from a security camera. Gerald and Derek in what looked like a parking garage. No audio, but the body language was clear. Gerald handing Derek an envelope, Derek nodding, shaking hands. Grace's next text arrived. Thomas's accountant skills include creative information gathering. This is enough for witness tampering charges. But Diana, if we use this, Derek goes to prison. Elliot's father. You need to decide. Diana stared at her sleeping son. Derek had abandoned them, had let them struggle, had reappeared only when paid to destroy them. But he was still Elliot's father, and 7-year-olds didn't understand that sometimes monsters wore familiar faces. Her phone rang. "Thomas, you saw what Grace sent?" His voice was weary. "Yes. I'm withdrawing from the case," Thomas said quietly, "telling the judge tomorrow that the December project is shutting down. Gerald wins. It's over." "What? No!" "Diana, this isn't worth destroying your family. Gerald wanted to break me by breaking you, and he succeeded. I won't let your son lose his mother or watch his father go to prison because of my charity." "Thomas, this isn't just about me anymore. It's about every family you've helped. Every kid who got a Christmas because you believed they deserved one. And what's it worth if we become the story? Charity destroys family. That's the headline, Diana. That's Gerald's legacy gift, proving that people like us don't get to win." Diana closed her eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices. Then she heard it. Elliot stirring in his bed. "Mama?" His small voice drifted from the bedroom. "Are you sad?" She went to him, sat on the edge of his bed. "A little, baby. Sometimes grown-up problems are complicated." Elliot sat up, rubbing his eyes. He pulled out the crumpled Santa letter from under his pillow, the one asking only for warm socks and his mama's smile. "Mrs. Chen told me something," he said sleepily. "She said her family came to America with nothing. People were mean to them. But she said they kept helping others anyway, even when it was hard, because that's what makes the darkness scared." "The darkness scared?" "Yeah. She said mean people want good people to stop being good. But if good people keep fighting, the darkness has to run away." He yawned. "Is someone trying to make you stop being good, Mama?" Diana's throat closed. Out of the mouths of babes. She looked at her son, this beautiful, empathetic child who'd learned resilience from watching her fight, who still believed in Santa despite their poverty, who understood goodness not as weakness, but as warfare against despair. What was she teaching him if she surrendered now? She picked up her phone. Thomas was still on the line, waiting. "Don't withdraw," Diana said, her voice steady now. "I'm coming to court tomorrow, and I'm bringing that evidence. Diana, Derek will go to prison. Elliot will learn that his mother doesn't negotiate with bullies, that some fights are worth the cost. She looked at her son, who was smiling now, sensing her resolve. And Derek made his choice when he cashed that check. He chose money over his son. Again. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Are you sure? No, but I'm done letting fear make my decisions. Diana's voice strengthened. Call Violet. Call Ethan. Tell them we're fighting this all the way. And Thomas? Call every family you've ever helped and ask them to come to court tomorrow. Pack that courtroom with truth. She could hear Thomas's smile through the phone. We have 12 hours. Then we'd better get started. After she hung up, Elliot wrapped his small arms around her neck. Are we fighting the darkness, Mama? Yes, baby, we are. Good. He yawned again. Can we have pancakes after? Fighting makes you hungry. Diana laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. Pancakes, it's a deal. At 3 a.m. her phone exploded with messages. Violet coordinating families. Julian arranging transportation. Grace sending more financial evidence. Ethan drafting motions. And one message from Brenda. Boss fired you, but I didn't. Every waitress at Mel's is coming to court tomorrow to stand with you. Try to stop us. Diana looked at the army assembling through text messages and email chains, strangers becoming soldiers, fighting for a Christmas miracle that had become about so much more than presents under a tree. This was about dignity, about proving that struggling didn't mean failing, that needing help didn't equal weakness, that miracles belonged to everyone, especially those who'd stopped believing they deserved them. If you're rooting for Diana right now, drop a comment and let me know. And subscribe, because tomorrow, everything changes. The courthouse steps looked like a Christmas miracle at 8 a.m. 50 people stood in the December cold, holding signs that read, "We are December Project Families," and "Thank you, Thomas Scrooge." News cameras that had come to film a scandal found themselves documenting a movement instead. Diana held Elliot's hand as they climbed the steps. Violet met them at the top, her eyes red but determined. Every family Thomas helped over 5 years, she whispered. They drove through the night, some from 3 states away. Inside the courtroom, Gerald Cratchit sat with his legal team, his expression smug. Derek sat beside them, looking uncomfortable in his expensive borrowed suit. When he saw Elliot, something flickered across his face. Maybe guilt, maybe calculation. Judge Maria Dawson entered, a black woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. This hearing has attracted unusual attention, she said dryly, looking at the packed gallery. Let's proceed with facts, not theater. Mr. Cratchit, your amended complaint alleges financial fraud and negligent hiring practices. Gerald's lead attorney stood. Your Honor, we have evidence that Thomas Scrooge mismanaged charitable funds and employed Diana Ripley despite her open CPS investigation demonstrating reckless. The CPS case was closed yesterday, Ethan interrupted, standing. Investigator Sandra Wells found 0 evidence of neglect. We have her written report. He submitted the document. Gerald's attorney barely blinked. Nevertheless, Ms. Ripley's employment raises questions about Mr. Scrooge's judgment. Furthermore, our financial expert will demonstrate. Your Honor, Diana stood, her voice cutting through the courtroom. May I speak? Judge Dawson studied her. You're not listed as a party to this case, Ms. Ripley. No, ma'am, but I'm the weapon Gerald Cratchit is using to destroy something beautiful, so I think I've earned the right to defend myself. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Judge Dawson's lips twitched. Proceed, briefly. Diana stepped forward, feeling 50 pairs of eyes on her back. Families Thomas had saved, now saving him in return. 6 days ago, Gerald Cratchit wired $50,000 to my ex-husband Derek Ripley. She handed the bank records to the bailiff, payment for filing a false CPS report and threatening custody of my son, witness tampering, fraud, conspiracy to commit perjury. The courtroom erupted. Gerald's face went purple. Derek stood abruptly. That's a lie. I was concerned about my son. You haven't seen your son in 2 years, Diana said coldly. You owe $30,000 in child support. You left us on his 5th birthday and never called, never wrote, never cared. Until Gerald paid you to pretend. Judge Dawson banged her gavel. Mr. Ripley, sit down. Ms. Ripley, do you have proof of this transaction? Grace stood, walking forward with a laptop. Your Honor, I'm Grace McLean, certified public accountant. I have wire transfer documentation, security footage of Gerald and Derek meeting, and text messages between them coordinating their testimony. She projected the evidence onto the courtroom screen. The parking garage footage played. Gerald handing Derek the envelope. Clear, undeniable. Gerald's attorney was scrambling now. Your Honor, this is inadmissible. Illegally obtained. Bank records are public with proper subpoena, Ethan countered smoothly, which we obtained 48 hours ago when we suspected witness tampering. Everything here is legal and verifiable. Judge Dawson studied the evidence, her expression darkening. Mr. Cratchit, would you like to explain why you're paying witnesses in a case about financial impropriety? Gerald stood, finally showing cracks in his armor. Thomas Scrooge destroyed our partnership. He took money that should have expanded our business and threw it away on charity cases. I built that company, and he built a legacy that actually matters, Violet interrupted, standing beside Diana. My father, adopted father, lost his biological son to leukemia 5 years ago. He could have drowned in grief and greed. Instead, he chose to honor his son by helping families who had nothing, and you couldn't stand watching him find purpose without you. Thomas stood slowly. Gerald, I offered you partnership in the December project. You called it wasting money on people who'd never appreciate it. You said, his voice cracked, you said my son died because I was too soft, too sentimental. The courtroom went dead silent. Gerald's face was ashen now, realizing his true motives were being exposed for the cruelty they were. Judge Dawson's eyes were ice. I've heard enough. Mr. Cratchit, your complaint is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for investigation of witness tampering and fraud. She turned to Derek. Mr. Ripley, you'll remain in this courtroom. Bailiff, please ensure he doesn't leave. The DA will want to speak with you. Derek's expensive suit suddenly looked like a prison uniform. Judge Dawson's expression softened as she looked at Diana. Ms. Ripley, I'm sorry you were weaponized in this vendetta. Your strength in speaking truth to this court is noted and commended. She looked at Thomas. Mr. Scrooge, your December project accounts are unfrozen effective immediately. Continue your good work. The courtroom exploded in applause. Families cheering, reporters frantically typing. Diana felt Violet grab her hand, felt tears streaming down her face, but she looked at Elliot, who was watching Derek being detained by the bailiff. Mama, is that man really my dad? Diana knelt beside him. Biologically, yes, But being a father is about showing up, loving, protecting. That man doesn't know how to do those things. Will he go to jail? Maybe. Probably. Elliot was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, Mrs. Chen says sometimes people make bad choices. But that doesn't mean we have to make bad choices too. Diana hugged him tight, this wise, forgiving, beautiful child who was teaching her about grace. Outside the courthouse, Thomas stood surrounded by families, a cancer survivor, twin girls in wheelchairs, a veteran with tears in his eyes, each one telling reporters their story, their truth, their miracle. Violet handed Diana an envelope. Your employment contract. It survived the legal battle. The job is still yours if you want it. Diana opened it, saw the salary that would change everything, saw the words Manager, December Project in official letterhead. What about the eviction? She asked quietly. Julian already called your landlord, Violet smiled. Your first paycheck includes a signing bonus, covers rent for 6 months while you get stable. Diana looked at the courthouse, at the families celebrating, at Elliot waving to the twin girls, at Thomas finally smiling with something like peace. I want the job, she said. But I want to change one thing. What? The name. We're not just the December Project anymore. Diana looked at her son. We're the year-round Miracle Project. Because families don't just need help at Christmas. They need to know someone believes in them every single day. Thomas overheard, walked over, and pulled Diana into a hug. Perfect, he whispered. Absolutely perfect. Christmas morning arrived with snow. The kind of perfect, fluffy snow that made the world look reborn. Diana woke in their apartment, the same cramped space, but now it felt different, secure, theirs for as long as they needed it. Elliot burst into her room at 6 a.m., eyes wide with wonder. Mama! Mama! Santa came! He really came! Diana followed him to their tiny living room and stopped dead. The space had been transformed. A Christmas tree stood in the corner, not expensive, but real and fragrant, decorated with handmade ornaments. Beneath it, wrapped presents, each one labeled in familiar handwriting. From Your December Project. Family Elliot tore into them with 7-year-old enthusiasm. The science kit he'd asked for. Books about space and dinosaurs, art supplies, and new socks, warm, thick socks in every color. But the last present wasn't for Elliot. It was a flat envelope addressed to Diana. Inside, a photo of Thomas's biological son, Michael, on his 9th Christmas. He was holding a toy soldier, the same wooden soldier Thomas had given Diana in his office. On the back, Thomas had written, Michael would have been 14 this year. I like to think he'd be proud that we turned our grief into grace. Thank you for reminding me why I started this. Thank you for fighting when it would have been easier to surrender. Your strength saved more than the December Project. It saved me. Thomas Diana pressed the photo to her chest, tears flowing freely. A knock at the door. Diana opened it to find Violet, Julian, Grace, and Ethan standing there with bags of groceries and genuine smiles. Christmas dinner doesn't cook itself, Violet announced, pushing past Diana with the turkey. Besides, Thomas is on his way with Mrs. Chen. We're doing this together. All of us? Diana asked, overwhelmed. All of us, Grace confirmed. Family isn't just blood, Diana. It's who shows up. By noon, the small apartment was bursting with laughter, food, and the kind of joy that comes from people who've fought through darkness and chosen light. Thomas carved the turkey while sharing stories about Michael. Mrs. Chen taught Elliot Chinese phrases. Julian and Ethan argued playfully about football. Violet and Diana sat together, planning the year-round Miracle Project's first initiatives. "We received 43 applications yesterday," Violet said, showing Diana her tablet. "Families from 6 states asking for help. Your story went viral. The good kind of viral. People want to donate. Volunteer. Be part of something real." Diana looked around the room, at these people who'd been strangers 12 days ago and were now her chosen family. At Elliot, laughing with a joy she'd feared she'd never provide. At the future that suddenly felt possible instead of terrifying. "I have an idea," Diana said. "What if we started a scholarship fund for kids like Elliot? Kids whose parents are working 3 jobs and still can't afford Christmas, let alone college." Thomas looked up from the turkey, his eyes shining. "The Michael Scrooge Memorial Scholarship Fund." "Perfect," Diana whispered. After dinner, as the sun set and painted the snow golden, Diana stepped onto the small balcony. The eviction notice that had haunted her was gone, replaced by a new lease agreement. The job that had seemed impossible was now her purpose. The miracle she'd stopped believing in had arrived. Not in the form she'd expected, but in the form she'd needed most. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. "Derek Ripley pleads guilty to witness tampering. Gerald Cratchit, under federal investigation for fraud and conspiracy. Justice, not instant, but inevitable." Elliot joined her on the balcony, wrapped in his new winter coat, another gift from the December Project family. "Mama, was this the best Christmas ever?" Diana thought about the question. A year ago, she would have said the best Christmas involved expensive gifts and financial security. Now she understood that the best Christmas was about transformation, about strangers becoming family, about fighting for dignity and discovering you're not alone in the battle. "Yes, baby, this was the best Christmas ever." "Because of Santa?" Diana smiled, pulling him close. "Because of people who chose to be Santa for each other. Because we learned that miracles are real when we're willing to fight for them. And because we found our family." "I love our family," Elliot said simply. "Me too, baby. Me too." Inside, Thomas raised his glass in a toast. "To Diana Ripley, the woman who saved Christmas by refusing to give up on it." Everyone cheered. And Diana felt it. The transformation from survival mode to actually living. From merely existing to purposefully thriving. From a single mother who couldn't afford Christmas to a woman who would now help thousands of families afford hope. 3 months later, the year-round Miracle Project had helped 127 families, launched the Michael Scrooge Memorial Scholarship, and partnered with 12 other charities nationwide. Diana's story had been featured in major publications, not as a tragedy, but as a testament to resilience. Brenda got her job back at the diner and became a volunteer coordinator for the project. Mrs. Chen joined their board of directors. Even Sandra Wells, the CPS caseworker, started referring families who needed help. And Diana? She still lived in that same small apartment, but now it was a choice, not a sentence. She was saving for a house. Elliot was thriving in school, and every morning she woke up knowing her purpose was bigger than just surviving. It was ensuring others didn't have to fight alone. The wooden toy soldier Thomas had given her sat on her desk at the year-round Miracle Project office, a reminder that sometimes the greatest battles are fought by ordinary people who refuse to surrender their hope. And sometimes, when miracles seem impossible, the bravest thing you can do is make a list, hand it to a stranger, and trust that somewhere in the darkness, Santa, in whatever form he takes, is real. Because magic isn't about what you receive. It's about what you become when you dare to believe you deserve better. And Diana Ripley? She'd become exactly who she was always meant to be.